Greetings, this is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster, and this is a very brief thingy. The next story will be Transformers MUSH will be the reunion, and I believe what's the name of the reunion? Ties to a Past and the Lost Ones. It's three. Ties to a Past and the Lost Ones were put together as Ties of the Lost Ones. By Fahque, yes. So yeah, it is the 21st of December. It's not possible to get this out on Christmas Eve, but we can probably do it by New Year's Eve. And do the next episode. I think a little Beast Wars stories take place in 2021. The first one takes place in the first week of January. The second one about a week later. So, but we like pre-filled, kind of like we did with Corrosion War with that. Same idea. So here we have, the reunion and the other, and we're going to go on to that. Hopefully, by the end of the month, we'll have done the third Beast Wars story. The remaining 4 stories are Transformer Ensemble stories, Optimus and Megatron and other characters. And yeah, so they're different than the Beast Wars ones. We're not sure how they will enter into those stories. Probably will be in the stories because we introduced them in a way or not as main characters. That'd be kind of cool. Just kind of do all 7 of them, kind of like Corrosion. But there's confusion as to the 2004 version of the story where Transtech Magazine. Basically, Transtech Magazine was canceled late in 2004, but there was a 2005 issue that was going to come out, and it was going to include Paper Flowers and some of the other ones. So, yeah, it got canceled. So these stories, all of these stories were the database from 98 that was found. 98 to 2000. There was a 2001 one as well that had some Axelon stuff later on. Of which I think this next story is one of those. It's a reunion. It was an incomplete one that didn't make it, the magazine. The other one did. Ties to a Future was in the magazine. So we having completed and just watched the Neil Davidson 77-minute film, the Escape from the Planet. It's cool. It's awesome. Watch it. Not just saying that because we put it together. Anyway, so now we got to get them off the planet. Now the middle chapter was the darker one. Now we got to figure out how to solve all that. Anyway, so yeah. And yes, it is a parable to the ailment, the binary bonding ailment, and the synth plague are related, and they are an allusion to coronavirus. Anyway, so in case you didn't realize that's what was going on. But what's funny is these stories were done, what's weird funny, is that they were done in the past, 20 years ago or more. So it's kind of interesting that they're thinking of that. I think 20 years ago they were probably thinking of AIDS, or something else. Depression was really common back then. Anyway, so we don't know anything more on Davidson, the font guy, other than he's dead. Died in 2016. I don't know him, so all I'll be asking, don't you know? It'd be interesting to find out some information if you know anything. So you can post that, but don't troll it and say like, oh, that guy sucked, or didn't like him. We won't print that. But if you know something about like what he did or whatever, that's cool. Anyway, so that was that making of, and that's it. We're gonna go up and film fairly soon. I don't know if we're filming today, probably tomorrow. We'll see. Yeah, because it is the 21st, anyway, of December, 2020, right now. Anyway, bye. Yeah. This is going to be the teaser for the reunion or Conquest of the Planet of Beasts or something like that. Or something to that effect. Plague of the Planet of Beasts. Yeah. I know what they're doing, the whole plague bit. Here, this is going to be, this is just making of. I'm showing you a scene that is not yet in the script, but it is a scene that bridges the stories together. Using some of the guys. So that's what this is. That's all this is. So we're going to film. Cut. It's the 21st evening. This is the teaser section. A little bit of making of. This is going to be the reunion. We haven't named it yet. Conquest of the Planet of Beasts would not make sense. They're not on the planet anymore. Probably Conquest of the Beasts, maybe, or Reunion of the Beasts. It was called Reunion originally. I don't know. Come up with something. Something that reflects the two stories that it's named after. There wasn't much this evening. This was just test footage, really. We're gonna use it though, so there you go. Anyway, Autobots, and this scene sets up the situation that brings us into the beginning of the story, and it's just the teaser. So, puts the Autobots in it. Explains to us that Draconis and the other guy are quarantined. Their crew is apparently infected, so they're quarantined, and that's why they're not there. But interestingly enough, we get to see Windblade's robot car form, which is kind of cool, as well as so there's a slight alteration with that, just to be fun, just because I thought it would be fun. So some of the similar people from last season that you recognize, some that aren't. They had sent a group out with the headmasters. Probably didn't realize they were infected, so they went out to the Beast Planet and came down with it on the way. They probably didn't realize it. So the Beast Plague has spread across the galaxy, like the Hate Plague and like the other one in the other story, and like the Space Plague. So yeah, it's a parable of COVID, obviously. That's what's going on. So, but it's also its own story. We're not making fun of it. We're just saying that, this is a story that's an allusion to a pandemic that happens to be happening. It's really obvious, thinly veiled, it's supposed to be that. But it's for robots, so it's slightly different than the human one. Also, the cure may be found on the SDF-1 planet, which never launched, because in this timeline it never launched, so it's still on the planet. Macross Island. They never launched the SDF-1, so if they ever get around to it, it'll be the SDF-1, not the SDF-3. And the Zentradi War never happened. That was in the other season. Previous season, the Invid War never happened because they were stopped by the Transformers as well in this version in 2018. So all the wars, the Masters are yet to be out there though. The Masters might be floating around out there. They weren't ever mentioned. They were offhandedly not mentioned. So that's interesting. The Zorlords would actually be closer to the Japanese version of Robotech 2, which had the three different Robotechs were different in that. There's probably going to be a Macross story in here. I won't go into the three Robotechs. Well, let's just suffice it to say that that Macross Saga, Space Cavalry Southern Cross, and Space Climber Matsupieta Genesis Climber Matsupieta were three different series by the Tatsuo and Toho Productions back in the day, and they were turned into Robotech in the American version, Carl Masek thing, and we have some information on Sony and all that. That's later, but we won't go into that yet until it's confirmed. If we don't know or denied. But yes, the Robotech was the three different series. They were not connected originally. So Space Cavalry Southern Cross was clearly set on a Mars-like planet with two moons. It had nothing to do with Earth. It was another planet. But in this version, they had to devastate Earth at the end of the other story and make it look like it was the other planet, which kind of doesn't work. But okay, that's fine. It's Robotech. We loved it as kids, so why not? And then it was the least of the favorite of the two spin-offs of Macross, which weren't really spin-offs back then. And then we had the Invid Invasion, which was the story of these supernatural beings that attacked the Earth. That version is the Earth, so it's almost as if New Generation should be really Robotech and Masters should not have happened. But let's just go for that. And also, it's a big cliffhanger at the end of the American one, as we said many times before. The Expeditionary Force in the Japanese one, in Space Climber Matsupieta, is not Rick Hunter's expedition at all. It's just the expedition. From Jupiter section and Mars section. Mars section came first, and then Jupiter section. That's all they were. There was no connection to Rick Hunter, which means there is no cliffhanger in the Japanese one. They just go, Scott Bernard's going to leave to go into space. Stig Bernard in the Japanese. Stig Bernard. Yeah, it's going to go into space. Also, Lancer and Cira were not a couple in the Japanese version. They were friends. They at no point were a couple. because the Japanese understood that Lancer was totally gay, and he wouldn't have been interested. He just wouldn't have been interested. The reason they teamed up was they had a mutual enemy in the Shadow Fighters who had turned evil because of the Reinhardt, who in that version I think was called a relic or something. But yeah, he was turned evil, which is weird because they basically turned traitors and helped the Invid at the end. It's a really strange story. And the Invid were energy beings, so why would they even... Anyway, so some of that might enter in some of the later stories down the road. Maybe. We'll see if the other episodes... I mean, they are going to go to Macross Island at some point, so... Just thought I would mention that. So we're gonna see that at some point to help out with the space virus that's going on. Because this is the third and final Beast Wars story, as the stories were written as Beast Wars tie-ins, ending with, this is actually the earliest one. So the 1996/98 one, it's the earliest one. The reunion, they threw stuff. So, yes, being the earliest one last is kind of funny, because it was the unfinished reunion, which Marlo Fahque helped finish. And then there was another episode tacked on that had... So the Beast one is like 50-some pages, and the other one is 25. The one tacked on is the same theme. A reunion of the Beast Wars and Transformers, the same theme. So that's the ending. So, yeah, this one, that might go to the Macross. But yeah, we'll see how they figure things out. But there are 4 more stories in the ensemble after that, set during the series in 2021 in this version. Yes, the rest of the short stories that were in All Transformers MUSH and Trends Tech Magazine, some of them also aired in Lexicon briefly. Some of the Jung ones, some of the Powers ones. One of the Belinda Kelly ones, which we already did last season. We did a later season one last season. The Andraxis 7 was actually a later season one that we decided to do last season. Because it was so good, we had to throw that. Because it didn't fit in the season 2, it fit better in season 1. So we thought, I haven't found any more like that. But if we do, there'll be an 8th episode in here somewhere. But if we do, if there's something in there really good, it's got to be about 7 to 10 years ago in order to be completely under the radar. Yeah. So yeah, we give them bylines, but we can't pay anybody. So it's under the radar if it's over 10 years. Just say, byline, okay, whatever. Yeah, we can't pay anybody. We can't pay ourselves. Yeah, this is on the cheap. Ha-ha! Anyway, so so this is the reunion so far. Yeah, it's not a holiday special. No, it's totally not. None of this is. The whole Beast thing is a holiday special. How about that? But it isn't really. No. Yeah. So yeah, and I just we watched. Watched that last one. It was fun. Really enjoyable Transformers story. The thing, and this is just a little bit of rambly because we didn't have any rambly on the other one. But yeah, so that's pretty much, but it's about what's going to happen, possibly, potentially, the Robotechs and all that and everything. Harmony Gold and Sony have a deal with Takara. Let's see what they do. And one of the others. We'll see what they do. Not holding their breath because it's an old deal that they keep talking about over and over again. They keep talking about Robotech Remix, which is another thing. Anyway, so that's what that is. Anyway, so we don't know. Anyway, so it wouldn't be Macross anyway. It wouldn't be legit. Anyway, so this was, I guess, day 2 of the Transformers filming. And I've done just Christmas Eve and done, this is real brief. We did the introduction of the Autobots and Decepticons to the Maximal ship that's on its way. Also, had the story called for the guys to get together like intermittently, and there was this weird sort of back and forth where they were looking for the chip and then the rocket ship and then this other stuff. I simplified the story so that it was not confusing. It was too confusing. And the guy's name was Eddie Skipper that wrote the script, so he skips around a lot, literally. So we fixed that. And next is so that they meet the ship and the Maximals meet over the phone, and that's it. Yeah, so there. That's it. All right. It's actually been 2 days since there's been any filming. It's on the 27th. And so we're going to film a scene on page 8 and 9, hopefully, and a little longer. And then we're going to film that. And mainly the Decepticon base scene where they try to figure things out because they're going to like mess with the contact. We've already done them communicating, but we haven't done contact yet. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. That's pretty much it. It's all the making you need, really. I don't know if this is gonna be done before New Year's Eve, cause yeah, it's just taking the longest time to do this whole thing. Yeah. Anyway, so here we are on Sunday, 27th. Okay, brief making thing here. The two maximal scenes here, one on page 13 and the one on page 21, were stuck together into this two parts. Stick them together the way they appear date-wise, just so you know. And then we're going to go back to the TFs deciding their thing, and Cup showing up and all that other stuff. If that's what's happening next, that probably is. It would be the other Cup. It would be the not the headmaster one who's on the ship, but rather the other one. And they're deciding on what to do, the Prime and Magnus in this version. The script jumps around, and ironically the guy's called Eddie Skipper. That wrote it. That wrote the first 50 pages of this. The next 25 are written by someone else, but this was the reunion, the 50-page reunion, of which the ending was tacked on because it didn't have an ending, which one of our in-house people wrote. So there you go. Basically, and then we have the 25-page other story that's set in the same universe. Yeah, so I'm trying to avoid the skipping around. Go back and put it so that it's not skipping so much. So that it's linear in the story. Otherwise, everything jumps. I get what he was doing. He was trying to like say, okay, these guys discover discover the Beast Wars signal, they send it back and all this, and they're gonna come back together, and they go to the planet, but it's a hard energon thing, and this is all written way before the Transmetal thing and Optimus and the discovery of the Ark ship and all that. This story was written before those other two Beast Wars stories that we had, so it's actually earlier, but we're putting it at the end because it fits better as the third one, because we didn't want them actually getting to Cybertron yet. So we made it a colony, changed that around. So yeah, this story jumps around every 6 minutes to something else. So I've tried to, the first 20 pages are all over the place. And so I'm trying to weed that out and make that a little more linear. So it doesn't jump everywhere all the time. It's like the author has ADD, and he just doesn't know that he wasn't supposed to put a Tarantino-esque type of, ooh, that this event that we're telling you about now actually happened earlier. No, you don't need to do that. It's much better a linear story to tell a linear story. If you jump back and forth with events that are going to be created and then they're created, that's not good storytelling. That's very Tarantino-esque. But here, he's not Tarantino. He doesn't know how to do that. He's just imitating it. And even we get confused with Tarantino movies, but with Reservoir Dogs being one of his better ones at the time. Tarantino, but he's not Tarantino, and even Pulp Fiction jumped around all the place. But even that one was around the same time period and a little earlier. And even that one, he stayed in a place for a while. He said, okay, I'm going to stay in this place with Vincent Vega, and they're going to be in the mob scene for like 10 minutes or something, and they're going to go do something else. Then we're going to cut to another story where Bruce Willis shows up and he talks about a watch. And then we're going to go to another story where, it's that kind of thing. It's like, not every 10 seconds. Like, there'll be like a sketch that goes on for like 12, 13 minutes and then jumps ahead. And then it makes sense. I get that it's a cartoon and they're trying to tell a story. They're ADD. But, yeah, in order to tell this story in this format the way all Transformers MUSH stories have been done, did 18 of them so far. Now 20. Yeah, we kind of know what we want from the story, so we've changed a little bit around. There were also 2 misogynistic lines in the story. I took them out. They didn't need to be in there. So, yeah, relating to females and stuff. I'm not sure why. Other than the guy's a little bit weird. He was. There was a scene with Black Arachnia where they essentially tell her she's a woman and can't lead the Decepticons. Kind of like Starscream, but they said she's a woman. And then the other guy says, "No, I'm a bus hunter. She's a Decepticon." It's like, why is that in there? It doesn't need to be in there. Are they doing that whole a woman shouldn't be on a spaceship thing, like the battleship from the 40s? No, we're not going to do that. Also, there's a similar scene with RC and Elita 1 that was taken out, in which a very similar misogynistic moment happened in the story. The Eddie Skipper story. We changed that too. To no, and again, it was a leadership thing. Leadership. And you know, complaining about it. Girl, Optimus Prime would not do that. He would not be a misogynist. He's a robot for one thing, but he wouldn't do that. So that scene's gone. So instead of that, it's more like Alita wanted to stay behind, but was concerned that all of the command staff would be understaffed, and there wouldn't be enough Autobots to protect them if something happened. So that makes her stronger, actually. That makes her like, okay, I'm taking charge here, I can do this. But it's not because I'm a woman or a man or male or female or anything. It's because I can do it. Yeah, it's like, that's better than doing it that way instead of saying she's in charge, she can do it. However, Optimus, you shouldn't go because there's only one commander guarding the base. So yeah, the objection is not a misogynistic moment. It's actually an empowering moment where she's like, oh, yeah, I can do this, but you shouldn't go. And he's all, oh, okay. No, that actually like improves it and makes it more, yeah. So stuff like that kind of bogged down the first 2 days. Well, it didn't really help yesterday filming because there wasn't any yesterday or the day before. Not really. I think back at Christmas Day it was a little bit. But yeah, I wanted to iron out some of the weird skips around in this thing and go over the other thing. I just thought to add this part in here because it's getting late. And yeah, and that there were some odd problems with the script that we had to work out before we could shoot again on the script. It's the weakest of the 3 Beast Wars scripts, but actually we've made it better by improvising a lot of lines. Yeah, so it's based on the Eddie Skipper story, but it's hardly any of his dialogue so far. It's been completely changed. So it'll say based on that story. Because yeah, there were some moments where it was like, what is he saying? That's like, no. I don't know if he just thought that way or whatever. It's late 90s or something. But yeah, some of the Galvatron stuff I knitted together as well. There was 2 Galvatron scenes that are knitted together in this version. They jumped around in the other version. It didn't need to be jumping around because we know Galvatron gets out. We know where Scourge is and everybody. We don't need to have them literally jumping to a new scene entirely just to have him pop in again a minute later. So I figured, like, no, let's just put them together. 5 minutes, boom, there you go. Let's see. That's how you. This could have stood some editing and polishing before we printed it, but we didn't. So a lot of these 7 remaining episodes. I think there's 4 remaining ones now after this. 4 remaining ones. Yeah, a lot of these episodes were a little problematic, which is why they weren't included last season. We're going to put them this season. The reunion, I don't think was actually... I guess the reunion did end up in... it was going to be in Transtech magazine, but that was when it was canceled. But the other one Paper Flowers was in there, and some other ones. Yeah, so you'll never see those in print, incidentally. We can't print them. Yeah, the minute we go and put them on a Google page saying, oh, these are the stories books that inspired the thing, it becomes in print, different from video. They have to get royalties and bylines, and we can't afford that, so we're not going to do that. So you won't see the All Transformers MUSH scripts in print. You're just going to have to go after the lexicon version or the Rob Powers version or whatever of these other stories of their collections. Look them over from there. Those people got permission. We can't. So yeah. That was some of the stuff we were trying to fix, and had to fix. This is a I don't think it's nothing else really, other than okay, we made the connections, and tomorrow, hopefully, a full day of filming on Monday the 28th. I don't know if this can be out by New Year's because we haven't had an opportunity to actually a full day. Now, although we jumped ahead to 21 from 13, that 7 pages that's in there shouldn't take that long. But yeah, but I don't want to go back and do that tonight. I'd rather put all the scenes together that go into the story, because that scene is kind of outdoors with Skylink. Yeah, we changed the Skylinks part and the whole dynamic because they don't go to Skylinks to get into Skylinks and crack some jokes about Transformers the movie and fly along. They're actually just there because the ship is coming to them. They're not going to Beast Wars Earth. These are colonists from a Beast Wars planet that was set up after Beast Machines. Between Beast Wars and Beast Machines, actually. This colony was set up as the result of the Beasties leaving Beast Wars planet, setting up the colonies. Probably the Vok did it. My guess is it's not really Transformers. The Vok probably did it. Because the Transformers wouldn't have. Maybe they saw them in the time stream and did it for them. Also, it could be that it's a little bit of both. It could also be that Cheetor from the other timeline in Transtech and his friends decided to set up a Beast Wars colony to honor them somewhere, and that it was back in time, and that they figured out a way to put them somewhat back in time, but not like millions of years, just an epoch or so. And they put them back there, and it's a dozen years or 100 years or something. So they'd be back in time, so there'd be a little bit of Beast Wars still out there, which is more like the Unicron trilogy version. So yeah, this is a colony of Beast Wars people, because Beast Machines is set at a future unknown time. So this is a colony just before Beast Machines that was set up, but it was discovered later in the past. So it was set back into the past because they're going from the way off distant past, maybe 1 million years or hundreds of thousands of years. There's a conflicting reports on when Beast Wars took place. I think it's probably tens of thousands of years, more than millions, because that never made sense to have 4 million years and all that in the first Transformers show. I know it's canon, so you have to say it. But yeah, so the Beast Wars is probably like 100,000 years, 300,000 years earlier, not millions, because otherwise it would all be gone. Even the ship would be completely gone, but that's the canon. So, this other planet is something else. It's a colony, and it's implicit in the story in the last episode that the headmasters, when they arrived on the Beast Planet colony to explore it, because they found out about it, they're going to go to the colony, infected them with the virus, and they're actually the ones that brought it. They're the carriers of the whole time. That might be what's going on, and it's possible the future ones are involved in that too. And yeah, it's a given that that's kind of what's going on. But it's a mutated version of the virus because the planet mutated it. So, and they went to the other moon, or they tried to get to the other moon in the last episode, and found that it was contaminated too. And then they have that weird Quintessant dude. I don't think he's going to show up again. He's just in that one story. You don't need him for this one. Yeah, so it's funny when we do these other stories. Other authors of course, weren't in a staff meeting or anything like that, so they don't know. And we just, like, these are stories that are put together even though they weren't originally put together. And we just got to say, okay, well, I kind of liked what this other guy did, so let's just leave that guy out of the story, which is why they ripped off his head at the end of the last act. Maybe he's not around anymore. Maybe his head is gone. Because he wasn't going to be important to this one. So yeah, you can skip that around, that's fine. But as long as you explain it. Let's be explained a little bit. Not too much, not convoluted. But yeah, and Macross doesn't want them to land. Yeah, so... Space Beast War Plague reunion. Yeah, and part of what also was going on, as I mentioned before, is the reason he did this reunion thing, the reason many other fans did something like it, and we've done 2 of the other stories that are like it already, is, and there were a lot of other stories, but we liked these particular stories, 2 or 3 other, collections to do those, was because that ending of that time warp thing that was going to happen tripped them out. They didn't know where it was going to go. They wanted to do their own thing. The fans wanted to do their own thing, more similar to the Japanese one, and they didn't realize that the actual story, when they got around to part 3, the 3rd season, that they would completely change it and make it the Ark ship and make it, that's how they got home, and it's Earth and all that. They didn't realize they were going to do that. I don't think the authors of Beast Wars back in the day, when we were all there, I don't think they knew what they were going to do next season. Unlike Best of Both Worlds in 1990 with the Star Trek, where they did kind of know, they did not. I don't think they did. I don't think Bob Ford and those guys knew what they were doing. But this being a nod to Beast Wars, a love letter to Beast Wars, this 3-part epic that I'm putting together, the length of a Starcracker, the length of a Chimera movie, this 3-part thing, this is the 3rd act of the Beast Wars ones. I get to do a Beast Wars thing with these colonists, because there is a possibility there could be a colony. There is a possibility. There's Beast Wars Neo, the Japanese one. There's the other thing, and the planets and all that. But it's not a reunion of the original Beast Wars cast. It's original. It can't be. So copies of them, clones of them. That totally works. Totally works. You don't normally use clones, but in this case, you kind of have to, because it can't really be Cheetor and Primal in them. And when we came up with that first idea of having this story, when we're choosing the figures, and I was like, Primal Prime has to be in this. But what if it's the Megatron from Car Robot? Just to say 20 years of that too. Throw that in there. So Megatron of Car Robot. And they found Galvatron of Car Robot in the box as well. Duality between the other Galvatrons. What if they appeared and then that caused the other Galvatrons of the past to disappear? And they're running around. Awesome. Let's figure out why that's the case. Would that actually be affecting 2020 in the story in 2021? Incidentally, this story is supposed to be in 2021. The Beast Wars story is supposed to have begun early in 2021, and it's just weeks, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, up till 2 and then 3. So it's really not that long. It's into January 2021 in the story, because we want to jump ahead. So that's my Beast Wars reunion. I rambled on, but I wanted to do the rambling here, and not in the end. Yeah, so. Yes. Yes, what is it, day 4 now? Yes, day 4. I think we're up to day 4. Yeah, this is day 4. I mean, technically day 2 was sort of day 1. It was, day 4. Yes, it's Monday. And we've done the 28th, I think. And we've done some of the filming for the day, during the day. Some of it. And we've caught up to the parts that we did not do yesterday, which was all the way up to page 19 and 20. There was a battle scene, there was a scourge scene, the other stuff. It's in the script. And that's where we are. So, anyway. Yeah, so there was a little bit more with the catty leader, Alita 1, acting weird, and then Springer being Tom Cruise from Top Gun going off on there. And we decided not to include Springer in this one. So he's not there. That scene was taken out. That was a little weird. There was like a Top Gun thing. It may sound awesome in a movie for a junior officer to try to chew out his superior, but in real life, that would not happen. The junior officer would be thrown in the brig and be an insubordinate, so that wouldn't happen. So we're not just going to go with that. It's silly. So anyway, and it's the same thing with that Jack Nicholson movie where you can't handle the truth. Same thing there. That wouldn't happen. And that had Tom Cruise in it. That was the other one. And Jack Nicholson. But yes, anyway, so this, we don't want to quote too much from 80s and 90s movies in here. Hardly at all, if we can help it. Anyway. So I've read through to the end of the Eddie Skipper portion of this. This is day 5 now. And I just wanted to cut in to say, like, all right, the next scene would have skipped immediately after Prime and them got to the planet. And then it would have been, like, immediately the Decepticon ship. There would have been this weird transition. That's just, over Decepticon. We're going to go meet the Decepticons now. There was almost no reunion with the Autobots. And then they skipped to the reunion with the Autobots. So what this next scene will be basically that scene that should have been there. Of course, the impact is not as great because, in terms of what he was getting at, Skipper was getting at, because Skipper wanted the Beast Wars and the Transformers to meet, not only in the timeline from, like, the distant future of Cybertron from Beast Wars, but another distant future set before it, where Cybertron, there was like 2 different Autobot factions in 2 different timelines meeting the Beast Wars. It really did not make any sense like that. I could have stood to rewrite the script as I was going and just change that, but I chose not to. I chose just to print it out and go from there, because we could literally just change the dialogue as we film it. So that's what I'm doing. This next scene then will be the Autobots and the Maximals meeting to discuss certain elements of the story, and basically improvised in not in the sense of linorama, because then it would be like jokes, but in the sense of them trying to figure things out. And there's no trapped Bumblebee in the story. It was Bumblebee. Goldbug gets injured. There's nothing like that in there. In this version, they've come out of the last scene where they all met as if they'd already recovered from the battle. I'll explain that momentarily. So that it's not an error. It isn't really a plot hole. It's just that we didn't. There's no explanation. There's no transition. I'll put the transition in there. Somebody has to mention the transition. And you show don't tell, but with robots you kind of have to do both. Especially if their mouths don't move. But yes. Also, the Decepticon part will be similar. So to make it a little different, because it's kind of the same information. So that's a little off. Then let's go with a day. I think it's the 29th, day 5. Yeah. So I just thought I'd chime in here. This scene is in the script. It's around page 25, and it basically puts the other scene that happened later with them trying to figure things out with the chips and the Matrix and all that stuff, which is in the script, to the disease instead. And basically put that in earlier, and then have the explosion go off, so that you're with the characters for a while until the explosion in the script goes off. Because then you get, okay, so that sets up this next scene, a series of unfortunate events, kind of, without making it just jump here, jump there, jump here, jump there. Let's show what the Decepticons are doing right in the middle of the other scene, for no reason other than you can't stay on focus, on track, and do one scene. You got to jump to 3 others first. No, just this scene was done, and now we're going on to the other one. So in order to get there, we have to set this up so that they do this, they discuss things, they have motivations, they're plastic, but they have motivations. And when we get to the end, then the Preds show up. And yeah, their reconstituted Pounce and Wingspan, who stole the sparks anyway from that Quintesson guy, they are dead again. They're dead. I'll just say that right here. They are dead again. But the blast seems to have blown the other ones away as well, literally away somewhere. I'm guessing the force field protected the primes because they were in it, but their disappearance doesn't make sense. Unless they were atomized or something, vaporized. No, they weren't vaporized. It'll become clearer later on what happened. But yeah, so far, something happened, and Primal had to rescue them. So that's what's going on. Just thought I would point that out. That doesn't need to be a narration in the story, though, because it's pretty obvious in the story. But yeah. And then they looked out into space, and the back end of the ship is blown out, and they can see across Cybertron into the murky distance. It's like, damn, they blew the back end of the ship. It's gone. They didn't have to detonate 3/4 of the ship, but they did. So then we don't need to be in the ship set anymore, because we blew up most of the ship set. There's literally hardly anything left. Come to think of it, now that I've done that, maybe I should show some of the other characters we haven't seen in the story recovering from what happened to the ship. And then go on to the Decepticon ship. I'm going to do that. And it does fit in with the script. It was just a scene that was shot later. So we're going to skip to what the other Infecticons and the Dinos are doing in the other debris field on the other end of the ship. On the bridge, which is near the front of the ship. I'm going to pop in real quick and explain that scene that just happened. Alright, this scene was involving the Dinobots returning to Axelon and having an adventure. So, it's a little bit later in the story. I think it's around page 34 or 35. And they show up, and it's after the Decepticons meet. We're going to do the Dynabot scene with the bridge next, so we can get off the ship. Yeah, so although this scene, story-wise, will happen right after the Autobots scene on the engine room, which blew up. They blew up the engine room, the back part of the ship. They've blown up 3/4 of the ship and left 1/4 the bridge section, which is a mess. And either they've been blown across the planet onto the ground on the tarmac, or some of them have been blown down through one of the levels. And that's probably what happened to them. But yes, into the underground, which is funny. Yes, so there's underground on another planet, though, so it's not the same one. Just in this story, he thought it was. Yeah, it wasn't. So yeah, it would just look a little like it. Yeah, for all intents and purposes. So yes, so we have. So yeah, we have the Dinobots showing up to help the neutrals that are on the bridge. Also, we have Megatron. Who is dead. Apparently, he's been dead since the end of the last episode. Just lying there dead. So the whole consternation of them doing stuff. There were too many characters in the story, so we're like, oh well, you know what's going to happen here is some of them are passed out or dead. They're passed out, basically. So that way they don't need to be in the story, but they're in the background, so it's not like we forgot about them. It's that they're just not in that scene. Here they are lying there in the background. And Grimlock meets up with his little buddy who sneezes on him. We're not sure whether he's actually has the virus or the cold, so I threw that little line in there. Also, Blaster and them were looking for him earlier. So now this is where they were, so it all fits in. Watch the whole thing all together, it'll totally make sense. Yes, now we're going to go to the Decepticon base ship meeting scene. The Decepticons meeting. And snickering that they've blown up the ship, basically. But it doesn't go over so well with some of them, let's say. This is the last 8 pages of part 2. And this part was of part 2 of the script. Middle chapter, the second act breakup, third act revival, is that. And we have the, we're just going to shoot the whole thing right now. Just, whoever's in it is in it, whatever order it's in, it's in. Let's just do that and then have that in the can. So that tomorrow, all we got left is the last 20 minutes of the thing, which is not done by Eddie Skipper. It's done by, it's some other guy. Does the Reebok and stuff. Fire the Lost Ones, or Fires of the Future Seeds of the Past and the Lost Ones, both by Bill Taylor. A very similar story, so by theme, goes together. Okay, that's what you need to know. And we are rolling. Okay, that was the end of tonight's filming, and we have completed all of the script of we haven't completed the whole script. We have completed all of Eddie Skipper's footage. The 50 pages of Eddie Skipper's footage. And this ending scene was based on the little bit that was, the 8 pages that was done on the end by our own in-house Martin Roadkill, who was playing the other Megatrons and Galvatrons before, and improvised the story and the scene. So it didn't quite copy the end of Transitions because it was very similar. Similar story to MCK. Makes sense. Jane Piedmont is Silly Kelly. Makes sense. Anyway, so yes. And MC Kim is Kal Kat, I guess, or something. Yeah, Marlo Fuck You and Raina Grande Fuck You for the same person. Anyway, so yes, this story, yes, we have the whole thing going on. And the battle on the set and the space storm, which is in the script. There is a space storm in the script. I just put it a little later on the end. Yeah, so they wanted to, and the whole setup is kind of there. And yeah, the setup's there for this being the end of Act 2. And the next story, which is the other author, is Act 3 of the 3-act play. So, yeah, so we're on par. It's working. So, okay, we're around between page 35 and 38 in the script. Most of the dialogue hasn't been used in the what would be amount to the second 25 minutes in the story, because it was all Beast Wars encountering each other, checking their protoforms. There was a sleep cycle joke. There was a charger joke. There was another bomb joke thing. I threw all the decided that all the other stuff fit better as sort of making it modernizing it, making it like it's not about Beast Wars and Beast Machines, because that happened to them. That happened 20 years ago. So they referenced something that happened in the present. Apparently, before this mission began, they all sat down and they watched Wonder Woman 1984. All the Autobots did. And apparently, somehow the headmasters brought a version of it over to the... They brought to the other ones. Yeah, that's not clear in the story, but that's what's going on. I didn't want to say what the movie was, just in case Warner Brothers didn't freak out. But yeah, Lita 1's armor does look a lot like the gold armor from the movie. I'm thinking they probably saw the Transformer lady, and the head even looks similar. They copied that action figure. They just made it gold. Great. I'll buy one just to prove it. Like, no, look, see. Yeah, it totally. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Anyway, so, but yeah, we're not trying to riff on WB. It's more like we just want to have them talk about something that breaks the ice, that isn't about Beast Wars and how Beast War people differ from Transformers and how their energy converters work and whatever. There's no energy chips in this one. It's the prime energy from the last story. They're using cloaking devices and things like that. The Insecticons have their own agenda. The Decepticons have their own agenda. Now the Decepticons are going to show up at this point here on the set, some of them, and they're going to threaten them. But it won't be much of a fight. It'll mostly be like them just kind of grandstanding because there isn't one. It is in the script like that they just show up and they sort of stalemate each other. The point with the story is that even in the script, there aren't very many Decepticons. In the script, it was Cyclonus and Soundwave, and I think one other dude, the Scourge, who was killed off. So it was like 3 Decepticons go to visit, and like 5 Autobots go to visit. Like we get Cliffjumper killed off, which is stupid. We had Hot Rod and Prime and Springer and RC and Skylynx and Cup. We don't hear much from Cup in the story. He just drops off. He's not killed. In this version, we see Cup not only in one form, but in the regular Generations form, but also in Headmaster form. So we use Cup a lot. Also, in this version, we introduce Soundwave a lot later as the character replacing the Cyclonus character in the story. So Soundwave is a lot later. So that made more sense in this story that he's commander of the Decepticons, not Starscream. They do reference Starscream in the script, but I thought if he doesn't show up, why reference him in this story? There's just too many guys. You got to narrow it down to too many guys, which is why you have the fight scene, and you kind of just say like, oh, they were blown out of the ship. We don't know where they are. So they keep coming across little groups of the people that are blown out of the ship that represent sort of their tribe and stuff. And they're doing their thing, and and they're only referencing that. And it's not just that movie they're referencing because it's a movie, but the whole idea of a MacGuffin device. So it's a surreal sort of like reflection of the 80s and 90s MacGuffin device movie reflected in Wonder Woman 84. In that you have, and the Transformers used it in Transformers movie in 1986. The idea that this tiny little object causes all of this other stuff to happen. The Matrix can blow up Unicron. The Matrix stops the hate plague in Transformers the show. They're not going to use the Matrix to stop the hate plague here. That would be the same thing. They're not going to use a wishing stone or infinity stone, as they joked about there, to stop it, because that would be lame. At this point, I'm not sure whether they stop it in the script, at least as far as the story goes, because there's another 4 episodes after the Beasties. Do we want them to stop it right now, or do we want them to keep going, trying to figure things out? I don't think we do want to stop it right now, because there's, after page 38, there's another roughly 11 pages, which is 11 minutes roughly, of them doing stuff and interacting, mainly about Beast Wars. And then, the last 8 pages of it is actually rewritten by our staff to fill in the ending of the reunion story. So there's this weird sort of like rush to include a MacGuffin that basically ends the story. And so it's connected. So it's not just that they're joking about MacGuffins and whatever. It's directly connected to the story. So, so yeah, let's go. Okay, and during the storm, we get the arrival of the 2 guys beginning the third and final act of this story. And here is some of their dialogue as they discuss things. We don't need to have, there are no flashbacks in this much. Anyway, so yeah, there are no flashbacks to a year ago, but they reference it. Yes. So, let's do this. What about? You're about to become the headmaster. Okay. Okay, this was the third and final act of this episode. I don't really need to go into too much detail. You probably already know. Fires of the Future, Seeds of the Past and the Lost Ones by Bill Taylor. That was more of a time travel-y story about it was about the Vahque affecting different timelines, the Beast Machines era and the Beast Wars era. They acknowledged, okay, the Vahque happened and all that. So in this version, try to make it so it fits in with the other story, but it kind of does. So the movie that they were watching, the Amazon movie, ties into this story in that they seed of Unicron and the virus and all that. And in that the MacGuffin is the virus. And it's not a wishing stone. The MacGuffin's also other things. But yeah, it's the virus. Which is messed up. So yeah, they get together, and this is the third and final act of the Beast Wars part. But it's not the final act of the Beast Wars, because you notice they did not die. They are still out there. And the future versions of Rat Trap and the other guys return to the timeline, as well as Primal Prime. And at any time, he's told that he can return to the past, to 2021. Hang out. And Galvatron 2. Yeah, so it's all tied up. I just want to treat this as 3 acts, and it's tied up. And it's a mini-series about the Beast Wars. It's a reunion. And we still don't know what to call this episode, besides just Beasties Reunion, I guess. That's kind of what most of it was called anyway, the Beasties Reunion. Kind of sounds like the Beastie Boys reunion or something. But yeah, it's a colony comes to Cybertron, and yes, we changed some things and moved some things around. Most of this guy's script was not used, but the dialogue and the ideas were kind of used. Didn't really use much of it, really. It was a premise by, and then we rewrote it, filmed it on the fly as the story that goes with it. If we left any plot threads open, well, that's for the next 4 episodes of the series into 2021. So, yeah. I don't know if I'll have this out by New Year's Eve. It'll probably be out the day of New Year's Day. Yeah, because it's already the 30th. So, yeah, doing a Beast Wars story that allegedly started on the 1st or 2nd of January, possibly closer to the 5th, was funny, because it wasn't really the 5th yet. It was really early December. It was interesting. So we kind of established that in the story. And then them say, like, yeah, they were watching that movie, like several weeks earlier. That's what started it. What? Okay, so yeah, I think this is it so far. I think this is what you got, and yeah, cool. So put it together, movie out. Should be another hour, I would think, roughly about an hour, maybe a little longer. But yeah, yeah, it works. So cool. Yeah, the robots, the dailies all work. I think there's only a little bit of focus problems, but I think you can fix them all. So yeah, put it together and see what happens. He's holding him upside down. Oh, come on. No.